Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. What an amazing day we have in front of us. And I'm still giggling because Courtney and I, you're about to meet another Santana. And I have to say, when I asked you, right, are you related? And Courtney, you are a breath of fresh air. You're a spirit in this world making a huge difference. And just, girlfriend, thank you for taking the time to be with me.
No, thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, and for everybody that's going to be listening, and I have people that send me notes, Courtney, and say, I listen to the podcast every day when I'm running, or I listen to it when they have rituals, right? And I love it when I say, well, get ready. If you're eating, you might want to put your fork down because you're you're going to be in for a huge surprise. And I mean, where do we start? Okay, so Courtney, I get to brag on you. I just get to shine the spotlight on you because you are... It's like, I remember the day I met you. It's almost been a year ago. And you have this like angelic light about you. You were across this giant ballroom and people kept saying, you two need to meet. You two need to meet. And so, right. And like, I think it happened finally by the afternoon. And we were so excited to we met each other and then we just grabbed each other and hugged each other. And, and I mean, where do you begin? You have an amazing, gosh, I could read your resume and your bio and blow everybody away. But Courtney, I had the sheer pleasure of listening to her. You've been gifted with a voice that impacts lives. And I sat there with tears coming down my face listening to you sing.
Oh, thanks, Holly. I appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about, I could rattle off, you've been the lead singer for the Atlantics. You do all kinds of things vocally. That's been part of your life for a very long time. But what are you most proud of? Tell us what you're doing in that realm right now, if anything still.
I am. I know you would think, with everything that's going on, but music is kind of just my language. When I'm on stage or when I'm performing for people, it's my way of giving to them. And I know that, it connects us in a different way than if I was just speaking to them, and I can use my words to affect them because I think music unites us all, everybody. There's not a person on this planet that can say, I've never heard one note of music or I don't like music. I just think it's just our universal connector. So I've been blessed with, the ability to sing. I don't know where it comes from, but I'm thankful that it's a talent I have.
When you sing with all kinds of groups, give us the audience a flavor of all the different types of groups you sing with and what are you most passionate about?
Well, it's, I've been blessed. I started when I was very young. I was part of a dance troupe when I was younger, and I actually didn't start singing until I was 21.
Really? I didn't know that. Ooh.
Yeah. I sang, casually here and there. People would find out that I could sing a little bit, so I would sing for different events, but nothing major. And then I came to go to school at the University of Texas, and while I was here, I was just like, you know what? I think I'm going to join the university group, and I sang for the Longhorn Singers. And from that point on, I started joining other groups, and I started doing live music and theater here in Austin, Texas. So I've been doing it for a long time, almost 30 years now.
You don't even look old enough to have said you've been singing for 20 years, girlfriend. So
yeah, but I'm most passionate about just singing. I love to perform, and I love being connected to people. I'm working on a CD right now that I've been working on for a long time. It's funny how life experiences change what you write, because I write music as well. And now I feel like I'm finally in a place where I can write a CD that relates to my life as it currently is. Not my past, but where we're going and what, I celebrate now. So it's good.
Oh, how perfect for you to say that, because, the whole reason that I feel like God put this mission on my heart is to celebrate amazing people like you, right? And so you just kind of took us where I want to go. And that is, I love that you're in a place where you can focus on where you're going, but your past has a lot to do with who you've created an amazing platform for, Courtney. And you started a nonprofit. Tell us all about your passion and what you're doing to give back, because it's really powerful what you're doing.
Sure. Well, it's hard to believe, but like 16 years ago, my children and I, we went to the local emergency shelter because my ex at the time had brought a gun to my home and held me at gunpoint with my son, who at that time would have been 8 months old, and my daughter, who was 2. And that was the first time that I saw my life ending, and that I could possibly not be there for them, and they were so young. And I was just like, what would I leave? What kind of world would I leave them in? So I went to the local shelter. And after I left the shelter, after about 3 or 4 months, I was just like, I really want to go back and help, because it felt really hopeless there. It felt like the women were just mulling in negativity and hopelessness. And I said, there's got to be something that I can do. So I started doing charity work there, and we built a computer lab inside the shelter, and I joined their board of directors. But that didn't seem to be enough, because I didn't feel like I had direct connection with the women, which I feel is like my family. We have a tie that binds us forever, is that we've all been through this together. So I was like, well, what else can I do? So I wanted to connect them to the arts and music community, because I'm connected to theater and live music here in Austin. And I was like, oh, that'll work. That should, bring, some sunshine to their days. And that started, that'll make them feel better, and put art on the walls, all these things that we were trying to do. It just never seemed to be enough. So I started in 2011 an organization called Survive to Thrive Foundation, because I identified that even with the shelter, there were people who were being turned away, and they weren't able to get into the shelter. So I can't really help them if they're not in a place where you can help them. And I really wanted to reach out to that specific community. So we are dealing with that waitlist issue and helping to get these brave individuals, help to get them stabilized and get them back on the path to recovery. And we use art, and we use music. We use all of these different elements to help them. So I just feel like it's all like a path I've been on. It's all a journey.
Oh, yeah. And this isn't just for the parent themselves. This is for the children. So when we come to the shelter, it's for the whole family. For you, when you're 2 and you and your children showed up, right?
Yes.
The arts and the celebration. What's sad is I'm listening to you. You mean people get turned away. What's happening out there? What do we need to do? What needs to happen right now so that because what happens when you get turned away? You end up on the streets, or you end up back right where you were.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, if they don't, if they don't get into the shelter, they could end up sleeping in their cars. They could end up at a homeless shelter. They end up displaced. They're not homeless people. They're just displaced people. When I went to the shelter, I had a job and I had a home, and I didn't, for me to end up in like Salvation Army, that's just another traumatizing event in your life. You're like, how did I end up here? I have a life. I'm just not in it right now, and I don't know what to do about that. So that just adds to the feeling of hopelessness. So for some, it makes them suicidal. And it's like, the shelters are doing everything they possibly can. The shelter I stayed in, they were amazing, and they took very good care of me. But if you can't get in, I can't even imagine what I would have done back then if I hadn't been able to get into the shelter. And in Texas, 39% of the women that will go to the shelters across Texas won't get in. Across the country, the numbers are like, in the hundreds of thousands of people that are turned away, and 2/3 of those are children.
Yeah.
So it's a huge problem, and we're, creating a solution for that. The shelters, I mean, if you can't rehabilitate someone in a 30-day period, there's a chance that you'll see them again, because they haven't learned the life lessons or changed the mindset that, brought them to that place in the first place. If that makes any sense.
Oh, it does. And the statistics are startling to know what's happening if you're a child in that situation, and then how that generationally, continues on. It's really breaking some generational patterns. And I mean, we need these. And I mean, the call out for anybody listening is to maybe, if this is, I'm always a big proponent of find something that's touched your life. As you're looking at, people will say, where do you give back? Or how do you know where you want to volunteer? I said, make it matter in your heart,
Sure.
Right? Let it be something that someone you love or someone has been touched by, because then you will have such a high level of invested commitment to it. But just listening to this, Courtney, and knowing that we have children out there with parents that don't have. And I'm just so grateful for what you're doing. So the Survive to Thrive, if you could ask anybody out there listening to this, what would be on your wish list? What could we do to help create more rooms, more homes, more places for people to go? Give us some tips. What can we do?
Well, Survive to Thrive right now, we have a campaign called 1,000 Nights of Safety. And basically, we can provide a night of safety for a family of 4, a gift card to make sure that they are eating and taken care of for $75. So we're trying to raise 1,000 nights, and we've been able to raise about 300 or 400 nights so far. So that's the way we're doing our giving campaign right now, as well as there needs to be more education. I spend a lot of time, Holly, educating people that this even exists. Yeah. Because when I say it, they're just like, no, people just go to the shelter and it's all taken care of. It's like, well, no, there's a lot of people who will go and aren't able to get in, and they're displaced. And the sad part is they never get back to the quality of life that they left. It may have had abuse in it, but it was a certain quality of life financially that a lot of people never quite get back to. And then there's the silent, those who are silently suffering from abuse that come in the form of financial abuse or verbal abuse and mental abuse. And they can never see the inside of a shelter because the shelter is for those who have experienced physical abuse. So there's this huge community of people, men, women, and children. And I include men because men suffer from domestic violence as well. 1 in 7 men experience it. And for a man to go to a shelter that has been delineated as a woman's shelter is also another re-traumatizing situation. So we're creating programming around supporting these groups that traditionally have not been supported by the shelter and those who are being turned away. So that's kind of our work. And for the men in this situation, I mean, we served a gentleman, I can't share his name, but I can tell you that his ex-wife hit him with a car and then tried to shoot him. Yeah. So he, the hospital was like, well, call the police, call the shelter. They called the shelter. Of course, the shelter was full. And he's like, they had to move him to another shelter about 100 miles away from his house. And he's just like, I just feel like less of a man. I've got to take care of these 4 children of mine, and I love them, and I don't want them to not be with their mother in their lives. And he's struggling with all these different things, and there's little to no support for him because he's male. So a lot of the work we do, we have a program called the Purple Bow Tie Campaign, which is specifically focusing on men and how they, as people who abuse, people who have been abused, and how they can support those in their lives that have been abused. So we're kind of a progressive and a little bit innovative in the way that we're handling this. But I'm hoping that the movement will follow suit and it will start to empower survivors, and really say, you guys have been through so much, but you have the power to take back all of this, and you're worthy of true love, respect, and friendship. So that's what we're doing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So I was going to do this at the end, but just because it's so fresh right now, tell us. So just even if somebody wants to find a way to donate and give so that one of those $75 cards can be made available, where do they go, Courtney? What do we do?
Oh, you go to our website. It's survive with a digit 2, thrivefoundation.org.
Okay.
And it's on our front page.
All right. And I just want everybody to know when we launch, I will make sure all of this is in the artwork and everything, the blog that goes out. But it's so critical that just what one gift card can do to make a difference, right?
Oh my gosh. It's huge, huge. HEB is partnered with us, and we have a national hotel partner, the Wood Springs Hotel. They meet all of our safety and liability requirements, and it's a wonderful place because it has a kitchenette. So you put someone in a place where they feel like they can take care of themselves, and we'd love to be able to provide, at least a week of hotel support for them so that our advocates can go in and help them to start rebuilding their recovery plan and their strategy for how they're going to start rebuilding their lives.
And you know what? Just even that week in a hotel, that week when you have nowhere else to go. And I know you and I have had we've had our moments to be able to share some similar past, but I have to say that the first 3 days that I had to go through that situation where I was hidden and they put me in a hotel for the fear of my life. And
yes.
that made such a difference to know there was somewhere safe to be, right. that I didn't have to live in that fear, because the biggest fear, and for those people that are listening, I just want you to know what Courtney, everything that comes out of your mouth, Courtney, it's so it's so beautiful, and it's so full of grace, and there's a peace because you've come through, you have survived, and you're thriving. And there's a lot of statistics out there. But gang, anybody listening, men and women, please know this is happening. This is a white collar situation. Like, there are people living behind closed doors right now that don't know where to turn. And one of the fears is we lose all it's not even confidence, it's self-respect, it's self-dignity. You begin to believe everything you're told. And I did not realize till you just shared with me too, the recent stats, that if you haven't been physically abused, then you actually don't even make the top of the ranking to get in.
No, not at all. You're not considered what would be considered like a red zone or a 911 call for a shelter. And justifiably so. Space is so limited and so precious that they've got to get those that are in physical harm's way handled first. But then there are those who have suffered. I've worked with women who their husband they've been verbally abusive for years and years and years, and it's starting to take a real toll on their self-esteem and making them question. And it also leads to addictions and leads towards other problems that these women actually have to fight through. And these are those that are living in the gated communities. These are those who are dealing with a white collar situation because their husband controls pretty much everything and every aspect of their lives, and they don't know how to escape.
Exactly. And they don't know that they can.
Right.
Right. It's two things. It's not, you begin to lose all self. There's nothing left of you, but then you don't believe that there is anywhere to go. So you just kind of subject to it. And then you wonder why we could go on and on,
sure.
Suicide but just thinking about like what kept you going. And I heard you say that, what kind of life am I giving my children? And
Absolutely.
Even with 2 little babies, and look at where you are today and look at the life you're living. And I love that you go, I'm a blushing wife of my wonderful husband, right? And I too can say I have an amazing husband. But, for anybody listening, let's have a really honest moment, Courtney, because for anybody listening that you might be battling this in your own secret black cloud of what's happening, what do we tell them? What advice can you give to somebody if right now they're not knowing what to do or that they can do? I'd love to know what your wisdom or guidance would be.
And I get this, I've been asked this question before, and it's always the same, is that I want them to breathe and realize that they are not by themselves. The isolation is usually the first sign of some sort of domestic violence or abuse, is that there is isolation, and that person feels like, I literally have nowhere to turn. I can't turn to my family. I can't turn to my friends. They don't want to turn to family because they never know how family is going to react. The family could go back and tell the abuser or the source of the abuse, hey, this is what is being said about you, and put her or him in further harm's way. They can't tell friends, and sometimes it's for fear of exposing their abuser or their source of their abuse. But there is always, always help. Shelters are available. Survive to Thrive is available. We're doing some programming right now where we're trying to develop a program specifically for churches, because a lot of churches, people come to their church and they're just like, surely my pastor is going to talk some sense into my spouse or into my partner and help me through this. And sometimes, they don't get the support that they need. So we want to educate and train them in the proper way of dealing with a domestic violence situation, just because I'm sure, I hear it all the time where they'll turn to their church and they don't necessarily get the support that they need. So they can't stay silent. You've got to go and get some help for your mental health and for the health of your children. I looked at my son and I was like, do I want my son to have these memories? Do I want him to grow up and think that because I tolerated and put up with, and I say put up with, these situations in my life, is he going to turn around and say, well, this is the way I'm going to treat women, or it comes out in some other misogynistic form, and he may not hit someone, but he could be verbally abusive too, a spouse or a girlfriend, can I be a proud mother of that, knowing that I have the opportunity to change that for him? And then for my daughter, it's obvious. I would never want her to be abused, and I wouldn't want her to abuse anyone else. So, it's really a mindset shift.
It is.
And, Survive to Thrive is really seeking to help survivors make that shift. We treat survivors like, okay, let's get them into a program and then get them out. But if they don't change the brokenness, if they don't, heal from that in any way, they're going to end up back in that situation. And I'm actually writing a book right now, Holly, that actually deals with that concept of that damage from, environment and past, and how it, manifests itself in future relationships, and that survivors of domestic violence really have to be aware of the type of relationships that they're getting into. If they don't heal those broken pieces, they could end up back in abusive relationships. And they don't even have to be spousal. It could be friendships. It could be work relationships. It could be any kind of a relationship.
Yes, totally. I mean, you just hit on something that's very important. And that, I think it goes with almost any situation in your life. If you don't take the time to heal, if it's a negative, toxic, whether it's an environment you were raised in, right, from abuse to all kinds of things. But if you don't take the time to heal, we are like magnets, because our instinctive human nature will fall back on that factor of what is the known, what becomes the comfort zone, right? So as much as you think you'll never do that again, if we don't take the time to heal and lean into the resources that are there to help us, it so quickly can creep right back up on you, and you're right back where you were. So
yes. Yeah. I mean, I started thinking about writing this book because I ended up in a friendship that was turning into an abusive relationship. And I was just like, this is weird. The person would call me 10 and 12 times a day. If she couldn't reach me at work, she would call me on my cell phone. She would show up at my house. It was just a lot of inappropriate, just, I guess, posturing from her that made me think, this is not a relationship that I want to have. And why am I allowing this person to make me feel? I was having the same physiological response to her that I did to my abuser. And I was like, this is crazy. So I had to take a step back from her. And then I took a step back further than that and really started to analyze and go to therapy to talk about, am I truly ready for a new relationship? Am I truly ready to develop friendships? And truly, what is going on in my head that, allows me to position myself where I can get into these relationships?
And thank you for being so completely authentic right now, because as I'm listening to you, my eyes are closed, and I was thinking about it's becoming something that's very passionate to me, is about helping people, empower them. Of course, that word is so important. It's empowering ourselves and empowering others. But, honestly, if you step back and think about the energy that you get or get depleted of, and the toxic energy you get from other people, you can become very aware. And it's one of those things, Courtney, that I think that it takes a while to get there, but the greatest gift you can give yourself is to be selfish so you can be more selfless, right? Learn who are the people that lift you up, that inspire you. Be selective on where you're spending your time, and don't do it out of obligation. Do it because we do become who we are around.
Yes, girl, were you a fly on the wall? My husband and I had that conversation about selfish and selfless. Seriously, because he was just like, I don't think selfish is a bad word. And I was just like, I've always been taught, and we as women are always taught that, you should never be selfish. You should always be nurturing. You should always be giving. But at what point does that become where it's a detriment to you and everybody else around you? And you're giving so much to other situations, but those who really, really need it, your family, and those who are close friends, your husband and your children, yourself.
Yes.
First off.
Yes.
Yeah, where you have nothing left to give anybody else, and you're sitting in the corner wondering why your world is falling apart. And it's because you didn't focus enough energy on yourself. The whole idea, I heard Susie Orman say it, like 15 years ago, and I've heard the analogy used so many times about the safety mask on the airplane. It's absolutely true. Where they tell you to put it on yourself first before you put it on those around you. It's like, because you can't give from an empty bucket. That's the bottom line. You can't give, you give from your overflow, as my pastor says. You don't give from your cup, you give from your overflow.
Well, and I love that. And most people, when they hear that, right, Courtney, they go, well, I don't know what that means because I'm an overdrawn bank account. Right. Yeah. I'm personally depleted
all the time.
The time. And so, and what's interesting, it's funny that we're talking about this right now, because just this last week, I spoke for a very large global organization for about 1,000 women around the world. And what's interesting is this is a global organization, right? And so they were women in the workforce, and a lot of them leaders. And they wanted me to wrap up this big year for them. And I really chose to take the time to awaken the power within and help them. Let's let go of the professional hat we're wearing and focus on who you are as a person. And Courtney, what I found afterwards and during, women are hungry. Women and men. I'm not going to say men aren't too. And you know what the word is? Permission.
Yes.
We need permission to say, and it's as simple as, you're right. We always think that we have to put everybody else first because that's what we're supposed to do. And that's what society tells us to do, especially for women. And yet it's the polar opposite, because if you can look at it like this, and this is the big, I call it the paradigm shift. But if you can actually look at it as just to be a little selfish, you can be far more selfless, because at the end of the day, when you can figure out how you're shining your brilliance in this world, everyone wins, and you win. Your spouse wins, your kids win, your colleagues win, your teams win. And yet we can't do that when we're always putting ourselves last and there's nothing left in us. So it's kind of like, learn how to say no so you can say yes, where you can be leveraged at your best. And I think that specifically talking about the topic we've spent this time really as two people that are survivors is really that you don't need permission to own why God put you on this earth.
No, you don't.
Need to believe, even in the darkest corner of your closet. And I used to go to the dark corner of my closet behind my shoe boxes. That's where I would hide. And I say that because that was my safe place. And yes, no one knew, because I was scared to death to tell family or anybody, because God forbid, how did I end up here? It was shame, right? And you have two women on this line right now, Courtney and Holly, that if we could see you, we would go grab you, hug you, and tell you you are extraordinary, you're amazing, you're beautiful. And God put you here for a reason. And no one gets to steal that and take that away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's true. And I mean, I think that's what we forget, that we are so resourceful. The women that I get to work with, I just listen to the things that they do every day just to survive. And you're like, gosh, if we could just get them on the other side where they're using those resources to not rebuild their lives, but to just fortify their lives and live a better life. I want to get them there so they can see the possibilities and see how that resourcefulness is going to turn into something amazing once they're out of this mindset of, the abuse and of the violence in their lives. And I didn't discover it until I think about, I've been out of my abuse for now almost 16 years, but 5 years ago is when I said, okay, I really need to break free and change my outlook on life and realize I am so worthy of so much more in my life. And they're like, oh, so you broke your abuse and then everything started going well. It's like, no. I wish, honey, I wish. But no, it's like, no, it took me a long time to get to that place where you just go, oh my gosh, I am beautiful. I am confident. I have everything I need just right now to live the life that God wants me to live. And it took me a long time to get there. I'm getting choked up just saying it because for me to say that is a huge, huge thing. There were times I wouldn't even look in the mirror, Holly, because I was so, didn't have the confidence that I needed to go on every day. And here I am today. I don't know if you know this, but since I saw you, I've lost almost 100 pounds.
What? You're making me cry.
Yeah.
Are you serious, girlfriend?
Oh my gosh. The last part of my journey was going from being almost 300 pounds to now I weigh less than I did in high school.
Courtney, oh my gosh, I'm giving you a standing ovation. Oh my God, I want to hug you. I want to hug you through the phone right now. But you know why? Because you're shedding all the emotional garbage, all that you've taken the time to heal. Oh my God, it's been physical, emotional, mental. It's been everything, hasn't it?
It is. It led to all sorts of weird disorders. I wouldn't eat. Like I had a strange eating disorder, and now I'm seeing like all of that just melting away because I'm in a position to be loved, and
you are loved.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Oh, and you even told me, wait, we have to do this because you told me when we got on the line before we started to record, I was talking about how darling it is. I'm a blushing wife of my wonderful husband. And you go, yeah. And right before we were getting on this call, I said, I don't have time. You need to figure it out. I got to get on a call.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? Well, but he loved me when I was at my heaviest. And he's just like, new wife. You know, he's like, I love my new wife and I love the confidence that you have. And he sees that with Survive to Thrive, it's like, now we're ready to present this to the world as a new way of doing this and truly being that picture of what women are wanting to aspire to be and being that in body, mind, and spirit. And I think that I'm finally getting there.
And you know what? He was brought into your life at the right time for you to appreciate. Because wouldn't you agree? I think for me, it took me a long time to think and really, really believe that somebody could love me for who I am. And the journey has been, I tried to sabotage it. Like, how could you love me? Right? I'm not lovable. All I had was those words in my head. And so to hear you say this too, we're very, very blessed. And we know that, but we had to get to a place where we could receive these individuals in our life and these men to love us. And that's why I love what you're doing, Survive to Thrive. If we're not careful, we're going to go right back into the same mess. So it's about empowering others. And I committed to you before we recorded, Courtney's on a mission 2017 is going to be huge.
Yes.
And I love your mantra. Will you share with everybody? Because you really gave me goosies earlier, Courtney, when you said, because I said, I want to support you. What can I do? And the month of October is going to be a big month. I'm in. You just tell me what you want me to do and I'm all over it, girlfriend. But you said something really profound. And you said it's with the label of being in domestic violence or being a survivor. Can you reiterate how you articulated that and what this mission is to you? Because I love it.
We said a lot. What I said.
Well, instead of being in the box, we end up being put in a box. And you have a whole different shift on how you're approaching this.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I think that for a long time, survivors of domestic violence have been victimized by the systems that were meant to support them. And not intentionally, because of course you don't mean to re-traumatize. But I also believe that we should be encouraging survivors to use that resourcefulness and that power that they do have to rebuild their lives. And to go from victimization to empowerment, and then use that empowerment, which is the big buzzword in the nonprofit world and the world in general. But how do you empower them to be successful and whatever that looks like for themselves? So it's like, I don't want to continually victimize people because you start, I guess, making them question their ability to do it on their own. They need to be able to know, I own this because I've seen the process. I went through the steps. I know how to repeat these steps for myself at any given point, and I'm building this life for myself. So there's accountability in that. There's ownership of their success. That with God behind them, they can do anything because they know the process. You don't give people tools and then keep them from using them. So we want to empower women and men and children to live their best lives, be their best selves, and for them to own it. Like, own it, not rely on anyone else to, I guess, kind of give them the keys to the kingdom. I think that that's the part of the problem, is that they don't think that they can do it on their own. They're so dependent on systems, I went to the shelter and I applied for child support. Well, okay, you apply for child support. You're actually asking the person who was abusive to you to provide financially for you.
Ooh, yeah.
And I'm like, really? No.
Right.
Why don't you sit down and you come up with a plan, your own success plan. And if you happen to get child support, wonderful. But if you never get it, because I've never gotten it, let's talk about how do you move forward in your life. Oh, I'm going to go on this government system where they give me so much money a month to buy my food. You're never free. You're never free of a system ever. And it's like, I wouldn't want that for anybody because that can be pulled from them at any point. If
Absolutely.
It's yours, if it's yours, then nobody can take it from you. And you know how to do it. So, you own the process, you own the benefits, you own the spoils. And I just want to empower as many people as I possibly can next year, and years to come. But next year is going to be our big, big push, from victimization to empowerment.
I love it. And I just love that. That's the distinction from victimization to empowerment. And that word empower, and it comes from being given tools, but then you got to step into that space and take these tools. And you're reminding me, okay, so I know we have to wrap this up, but I got two things we have to do. And one, you have no idea. So get ready, girl. Okay. One is you're making me remember something. And I want to thank you. You just gave me a gift. And I want everyone to know that this interview right now, I am launching right at the holiday time. And for two reasons specifically. One is no matter where you are in the world, this year is coming to an end very shortly for most people around the world, even at different months. But when we think about the gift this time of the holidays in the United States, and we think about the end of the year and the new year, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is to begin to rediscover who we are and truly understand that you are loved. And the people around you who in your life might be hurting and needs to be reminded of how much they're loved and how amazing they are. So why not give that gift and really seek out to see who can you be there to be a support for? And, Courtney, as I was listening to you, brought back a memory so many, many years ago. Mine goes back almost 28 years. So it's a very, very long time ago. I will not lie. It took me probably 10 to 15 years and I can't say this on the live recording, or I guess I could and we could have it muted out. But for 488 days, I was told I was a stupid fucking bitch. And every day, usually multiple times. And so it took me 10 to 15 years that if I didn't drop something, the first thing I do is start shaking. And those are the words that come into my head. Well, after that time, I miss this, and you've inspired me. I wish we lived closer because I'm going to find a way. But I used to go to the shelter that was in more of the, in the bad part of the area, of our city where I was living. But I would go in because I wanted women. I would call it makeup in a shoebox. And I would help them learn how, with what they had, to help them feel beautiful. Let's put on makeup, make you feel good without having to go to the store and buy a bunch. And then we would look at how are we dressing? How can you begin on even a shoestring of a budget? It was shoestring, right? Makeup and clothes.
Yes.
But when you can feel that you can stand in a little ounce of confidence and with a little help. So I would go around and I get all these people to donate, a lot of women in their professional clothes, but women were transitioning and giving them an opportunity to go interview for a job. And feel like that they can present themselves and, to be able to get out there and build that confidence. So you've just empowered me to want to get back to giving back like that. So I want to thank you for the gift, Courtney, and I'm all yours in 2017, whatever I can do to support you and your mission and your passion. And my love, you have a gift, and that gift is, it always makes me cry. But is there any song that when you think about the capstone of what your life has been like and celebrating who you are today, what song comes to mind for you, just top of mind?
This is funny. Okay, so it's not a plug, but it is kind of a plug. I wrote a song called Survive, and it just basically talks about, how your life, people around you know what's going on with you, but you're trying to hold it all together. And, remember the spinning plates when we were younger, trying to keep all the spinning plates going. But you just how do you do that with one arm tied behind your back? And
all right, so you realize what I'm going to do right now. I know. We can't end this. We cannot end this show without you giving us even 30 seconds or a minute. Sure. I want to hear this because your voice is. Get ready, world. It's like an angel coming through the phone line. Share something from this song, as much or as little as you want.
Sure. Okay, so it's called Survive. Okay. Pieces of your life are scattered everywhere. You're on your knees again, praying that this life is over and done. But somewhere deep inside says, open up your eyes. You're more than just the power of one. I'll give my hand to you tonight. So forget what you've been told. Oh, girl, no cry no more. You know the truth now. And it's time to get up, stand up, and survive. Your life is far from through. There's hope inside of you. And it's time to get up, stand up, and survive.
Okay, I just want to thank you because I'm crying.
Don't cry, Holly.
Oh, I'm crying, Courtney. I mean, oh my God, I don't even have any Kleenex today. I am sitting here and I'm wiping my eyes. Thank you. Oh,
Thank
we
you.
need
my early morning voice.
Oh, I love your early morning voice, and you
it's like Barry White.
Oh, girlfriend, get this CD done. And I got to tell you, my son, who is my producer now, he's an audio engineer, a music producer. He's on tour right now, but he is going to listen to this, and I know he's going to be like, "Oh, Mom, that voice." I know. I'm going to be like, "Oh, this is amazing." Thank you, my beautiful friend, for sharing this time with me.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. I love the opportunity to talk to people about this, but in such a way that it's not negative. It's uplifting. You know, we have to start changing the language around domestic violence so that we can have some real conversations that will really impact lives in a positive way. And constantly talking about bruises and slaps and that's part of the story, but it's not the whole story.
Exactly. And you'll love this, my friend. And I know we'll wrap it up, but I have to say it's part of my mantra is years ago I had a choice. Do I want to live in woe is me or do I want to live in wow is me? And I chose wow is me because I choose to live every day as a choice with joy. And part of why I haven't shared a lot about that past is because I've chosen to not dwell in it. I know that I'm a much greater person because of what I've been through. And when faced with adversity, do we get bitter or better? Right? Right.
Yes. And a lot of survivors want to hear that story.
Exactly. So your joy, your beautiful energy just came through the phone and hearing that song, get that CD done. And so that we can all get it and buy it. But tell us as we wrap this up, how can people, I know about the foundation. What if somebody wants to reach out and ask you questions? Do you have your website? How can people reach out to you, Courtney?
Absolutely. I've got 2 websites. Well, I've got Courtney Santana Music that we have, that it's being built, it's being rebuilt, but it's up. And then I'm all over social media, Courtney Santana. If you type me in on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you can follow me there. Courtney Santana Music. And then, I would love for folks to support, this book that I have coming out. It's called Off Kilter. And it's the Imago Domestic Violence. And it kind of talks about what we talked about earlier about how we're a sum total of our experiences, and sometimes it leads us down different paths. And then the CD, I'm praying prayerfully it'll be out April 2017 for my birthday. So.
Oh, okay. That's what's going to happen. Let's put it out there, right?
You need to come to Austin for my birthday. We're having a big, big party. So that's the night it's coming out.
All right, girl, put me on the list. I will be there. If I'm in this country, I'm going to be at your birthday party. So tell everybody.
I would love that.
Okay.
I would love that.
Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you. Yes. It was wonderful to have you.
Yes. And please encourage people to come to the Survive to Thrive website. If they're looking for help, we're happy to help build exit strategies, plans for them so that they're not feeling like they're jumping out without a net. There is a way to do it so that they can feel safe in making this plan to end the violence in their lives.
And may that be the gift of the holiday, to take care of ourselves so we can take care of others. Right?
Yes.
Yes. God bless you, baby. Great to have you. Thank you, darling. Oh.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.